Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Pesachim Daf Gimel is in the middle of a continuous discussion about the source of Isser Hana. We're discussing a machlokes between Rabbi Abahu and Chizkiah as to what the source is. The Gemara is in the middle of a list of proofs against Rabbi Abahu and one even against both of them. We have 5 proofs left to go. The Gemara will answer each of them. Then the Gemara will try to show that this machlokes is really machlokes Tanaim. And then the Gemara will say, you know what, there's not really any difference between the machlokes, the two opinions have no halachic nafkamina anyway, and the Gemara will try to find a place where the two opinions actually differ on a specific halacha. Then the Gemara will go into other Amoraim discussing the same subject. So first of all, the machlokes between Rabbi Abahu and Chizkiah is what is the source for things which are forbidden to eat that are asur b'achila. When are they also asur to have any other benefit, any fiscal or other physical benefit from them? When are they also asur b'hana? According to Rabbi Abahu, anytime the Torah says that something is forbidden to be eaten, it's also forbidden in hana, unless it specifically tells you you're allowed to have hana. And the proof to that is that we find the place where the Torah specifically tells you that you're allowed to have hana, and that's by nevela. Therefore, everything else obviously must be automatically assumed to be forbidden in hana just because the Torah tells you that it's also to eat. Now, Chizkiah says that's only true where the Torah says the phrase lo yeh ochel, should not cause eating. That means you should not have any benefit which can be translated into food. Any other circumstance where it doesn't say lo yechal, if it just says lo sochal or lo sochlu or something like that, it's only telling you that you may not eat it. It's not telling you that you cannot have hana. You're allowed to have hana even if it doesn't specifically say you are. So the Gemara is in the middle of a list of kashas. Gemara's first one is from Truma. We know that Yisrael is not allowed to eat Truma. The Torah just says lo yochal kodesh, not allowed to eat it. And however, even though you're not allowed to eat it, according to Rabbi Abahu, it should be forbidden. And with hana, also we have a Mishnah that tells you that you're allowed to use it to make an erev tchumen. You're allowed to set it somewhere so that you can extend your tchum. So how should you be allowed to do that? So Gemara answers, this is different because the Torah says trumaschem shalachem tehei. It says an extra trumaschem. It's your truma teaching you that you are allowed to have it. You're allowed to consider it yours. You're allowed to have certain uses of it, even if you're Yisrael. What does Chizkiah do with that? What is that extra phrase for? You don't need that. It should be permitted with hana automatically. So Chizkiah just says, no, Truma Schem is a standard phrase. We're talking to Klal Yisrael, we're talking to the Jews, and we're saying that it's your Truma. There's nothing extra. There is no need for an explanation as to why he uses those words. Okay, next the Gemara asks from Nazir. A Nazir is not allowed to drink wine or eat any wine-related foods, yet he is allowed to use them to make an erev tchumen. Well, should he be allowed to do that? The Torah says he's not allowed to eat. According to Rabbi Abahu, we should say that he's also not allowed to have hana. So the Gemara gives a similar answer. The Gemara says we call it nizroi, his naziros, and therefore it's his. He's allowed to have it, and therefore he is allowed to have some. That is teaching you that this is an exception. He is allowed to have some benefit from it. Rav Ashi gives another source that it says that it tells us that the hair of the Nazir, when it's finally cut off, is forbidden b'hana. That implies only that it's forbidden b'hana. Everything else is permitted. That is a specific source that teaches me that he's allowed to get hana from wine. The Gemara says it doesn't say only this. It just says that his hair is forbidden to get hana. I can very easily learn from there to everything else. You can't tell me that only this and not anything else. There is no extra phrase there that seems to make this exclusory. And therefore, the Gemara says we'll reject that. Just we'll go with the first answer. Okay, the Gemara's next question is from Chadash. The halacha is that you're not allowed to eat any grain or grain-based food until after the carbon ha'omer is brought every year. Anything which grew after the carbon ha'omer is brought, you may not eat until the carbon ha'omer is brought, but you are allowed to cut it short and feed it to your animals. So that means that you're not allowed to eat it, but you are allowed to get hana. Kashan Rabbi Abahu. Gemara says this is different again. It says kitzirchem. It says it's yours. It's implying that you are allowed to have certain uses from it, and you're allowed to feed it to your animals. You're allowed to have hana. Okay, the Gemara's next question is from Shratzim. Shratzim are rodents, non-kosher animals, which are tamei also. You're not allowed to eat them. The Torah says, as a matter of fact, it even says lo yeh achel. This should be forbidden to get hana from it, according to Chizkiah as well. Both Rabbi Abahu and Chizkiah should say this is forbidden to have hana. Yet the halach is, if you catch one of these animals in a trap while you're hunting kosher animals, then you're allowed to sell them to goyim. Only if you caught it by mistake. You're not allowed to hunt them on purpose. You're not supposed to have a business that is dealing in non-kosher. But if you do catch one by accident on a one-time, non-long-term basis you are allowed to sell it. So the Gemara says, why are you allowed to sell it? You shouldn't be allowed to get hana from it according to both Rabbi Yehuda and Chizkiah. So Gemara says here also it says the word lachem, which says you are allowed to get something out of it. Gemara says, well, if that's true, then I should be allowed to have a business in it. It says lachem, it says they're mine, so I should be allowed to do whatever I want with it. Gemara says no, because you have a contradictory term where it says yihiyu b'havyasan you, they should be, meaning they should be forbidden to you. So we have an extra word that says it's forbidden, an extra word that says that you are allowed to get it, so we come up with the halacha that you are allowed to use it in a one-time or a rare scenario, but it's not allowed to be a consistent practice. Okay, the Gemara's next and final kasha is from chametz. Chametz we know is also b'hana, but there is one opinion of Eitana that says it is permitted b'hana. That's Rabbi Yossi Haglili. He says you're allowed to get hana from chametz on all of Pesach. How does Rabbi Avo understand him? The Torah says you're not allowed to eat it. The phrase you're not allowed to eat should also imply you're not allowed to get hana. How do you understand that? So the Gemara says Chizkiah. The Gemara says Rabbi Avo will say that Rabbi Yossi Haglili understands you're allowed to get hana because there's an extra phrase l'cha. It says the extra word l'cha to you. So Gemara says that there are actually 4 times the word l'cha appears, and there are 3 different halachos we learn out of it. Rabbi Yossi Haglili has a 4th one. The other Rabbanon have the other 3, and that's why it's not considered to be a problem of what they're going to do with his l'cha. They have 3 limudim. Rabbi Yossi Haglili just says that there's a 4th l'cha, but the 3 things we learn out of it is that only your chametz is forbidden to you, not chametz that belongs to a guy, and not chametz that belongs to a guy, even if the guy is one that you have dominion over, he works for you. And the 3rd l'cha is that even if what's owned is seor, that's sourdough, that's a pasuk, an extra l'cha to teach you that that's also forbidden, not only regular chametz. And the Gemara explains you need a pasuk for sourdough and for regular chametz, because each one, if I only said one of them, I would think that's the only one that's asur. If it said sourdough, that is very chimutz, it has a lot of chametz, a lot of sourness, and therefore I would think that that's what's forbidden, but not regular bread. And if it said regular bread, I would think that that's forbidden because you may end up eating it. Sourdough nobody eats, and therefore I would think that that's permitted. Either way, we have 3 limudim. That's how the Rabbanan would explain the extra l'cha, which appears 3 times. The Rabbi Yossi just says there's a 4th l'cha, and that's to teach you that you're allowed to get benefit from it, even though you're not allowed to actually eat it. Now we have concluded all the kashas that we would like to ask on Rabbi Avo and even one on Chizkiah. The Gemara now wants to say that maybe this entire machlokas is a machlokas tanaim. Again, this machlokas as to whether when the Torah standardly says that something is forbidden to eat, does that automatically mean usually that it is forbidden to get hana from that as well? So the Gemara wants to say it's a machlokas between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yossi Haglili. What's their discussion? Their discussion is about chaylev and nevela. As we'll recall, nevela is an animal which died without being shechted properly. The halacha is that it is also to eat. It is specifically said in the Torah that it is permitted behana. You're allowed to use it. The Torah says you're allowed to do work with it. You're allowed to get hana from it. But the Torah has an extra phrase. It says not only are you allowed to do work, it says you're allowed to do kol malacha. You're allowed to do all work. What's that extra all adding? So Rabbi Yossi Haglili says that extra all is telling me an extra heter. It's saying that not only are you allowed to do work in the Beis HaMikdash with it, not only are you allowed to get hana for the Beis HaMikdash, you're also allowed to get private hana from it. I may think that it's only Beis HaMikdash hana you're allowed to get because chaylev is forbidden fats that go on the mizbeach in most animals. So I may think that in the chaylev of an nevela, you're only allowed to get special uses from it for the Beis HaMikdash. The extra phrase all is therefore telling me in the halacha of Isser Hana, it's telling me no, you're allowed to get Hana even from for private uses. Now, according to Rabbi Akiva, this extra word, all this extra alcohol, has nothing to do with Isser Hana. It's talking about Tumah and Tahara. Generally, Nevela is Tameh. Chaylev of a nevela is not tamei. This pasuk is talking about tumah and tahara, and it's telling me that not only is nevela not tamei for private uses, that you're allowed to use it for chulin, for things which don't have any kedusha, it's even considered to be tahar for Beis HaMikdash uses. I would have thought not, and therefore it's coming for Beis HaMikdash uses. Now, says the Gemara, that means that according to Rabbi Yossi Haglili, this pasuk that's saying that you're allowed to do things with chaylev of an avela is talking about iser hana and heter hana, and the extra word lakol is to add an extra heter hana. That means that I would have thought, had this pasuk not been written, that it is asur b'hana. That means that standard, just because the Torah says you're not allowed to eat something, that means that it is generally asur even to get hana. That's why chelev nevela is assumed to be asur b'hana. And this pasuk is coming to tell you that it's mutter b'hana, and the extra word lakol is telling me it's even mutter b'hana for a private individual. That would seem to indicate, like Rabbi Avo, anything which you're not allowed to eat is forbidden to get hana from automatically. Rabbi Akiva, though, would say this pasuk has got nothing to do with this hana, because chelev nevela, it never says that it's asur to get hana. Like Chizkiah, it doesn't say anything which indicates it's asur b'hana, just says you're not allowed to eat it. Therefore, this pasuk has to be talking about tumah and tahara. Generally, the nevela is tamei, and this is telling me this here, that this chelev of the nevela is not tamei, and on that, the extra word lakol tells me it's not tamei even in the Beis Hamikdash. So that would be going like Chizkiah. Says the Gemara, no, that's not what's happening over here at all. Really, everybody agrees to Rabbi Avo. Whenever you're not allowed to eat something, automatically that means it's asur b'hana. Now, nevela, the Torah specifically and clearly says is mutter b'hana. According to Rabbi Haglili, that only applies to things which count as nevela. Certain parts of the animal don't count for the halacha of nevela. Chelev and gid hanasha are forbidden before the animal ever died, and therefore it was never considered to be nevela. Not only that, it doesn't even count for flavor, the gid hanasha. So it has no halacha of nevela. Therefore, when the Torah says that it is permitted to have hana from it, it does not apply to chelev and nevela. Therefore, we have this pasuk here that comes and talks about the heter hana. That's why we need a pasuk talking about the heter hana, and that's why that's what this is about. According to Rabbi Akiva, this is about tumah and tahara, because I don't need a pasuk to tell me heter hana. The Torah said all parts of a nevela are permitted to get hana. It said that clearly that included the chelev of the nevela. Therefore, this pasuk. Therefore, the topic of chelev was already permitted long ago to get hana from it. Therefore, this pasuk must be talking about tumah and tahara. But standard, greater Rabbi Avo, whenever something's forbidden to eat, it's forbidden to get hana from it as well. The Gemara says, okay, very nice, but you then are left leaving out gid hanasha. You said that according to Rabbi Yossi, gid hanasha and chelev were left out of the Torah's heter of hana of a nevela. This pasuk here comes and applies that heter even to chelev, but nothing applies to gid hanasha. Where do you see a heter for gid hanasha? The Gemara says that basically will tell you there's a kal v'chomer. Chelev is much stricter than gid hanasha. Chelev is something which you get kares if you violate, and yet you're permitted to get hana from it. So gid hanasha, which is no kares, it's only a regular lav, certainly you would be permitted to get hana from that. The Gemara says, well, hold on a second, that's such a great argument. We know that there's a Reb Shimon out there. Reb Shimon holds that actually gid hanasha is forbidden to get hana from. What does he do with that kal v'chomer? You have a great kal v'chomer from chelev. So Gemara says he'll tell you chelev is nothing to do with getting. You can't learn from chelev to get hanasha. The reason why chelev is permitted to get hana from it is because chelev is a weak iser. Yeah, you're right, it's kares, but it's weak. You know how it's weak? A chaya, a wild animal, its chelev is permitted. You're even allowed to eat it. So chelev is a weak iser. That's why it's also permitted to get hana from it. Gid hanasha is forbidden in every animal, wild or domesticated, and therefore it would be forbidden to get hana even from that. The Gemara says, oh, that's a good answer. What is basically going to do with that? What that messes up the kal v'chomer? The Gemara says, no, he will tell you that which the Torah says that we are discussing here is domesticated animals. Within the world of domesticated animals, there is no weakness in the iser of chelev. It's only stronger, and therefore you can have a kal v'chomer from chelev, which is permitted to get hana, to get hanasha, which is permitted to get hana. You can't bring me a proof or a weakness which you found by wild animals. That's not what we're discussing. That's not the topic. The Gemara has concluded that. The Gemara now says, is there any actual difference between Rabbi Avo and Chizkiah? Rabbi Avo and Chizkiah have different sources for things, but they all come out with the same halachos being asur b'hana, and the same thing is not being asur b'hana, being permitted to have hana. So what's the point of this machlokes anyway? So Gemara says the point of the machlokes is two things which are asur b'hana, which is chametz on Pesach according to the Rabbanon, and a shar, an axe, the shar niskal, an axe which has to be stoned for killing somebody, which everybody agrees that those are asur b'hana, but the source for it is different. According to Rabbi Avo, these things are forbidden because everything in the Torah is forbidden standardly, and according to Chizkiah, they have a special limud. So Gemara says that's the difference. Gemara says, but again, it's not a halachic difference. It's just a question of what the limud is. Is there any actual halachic difference between the two? Gemara says there is a halachic difference between the two. Rabbi Avo only said his source nevela, he said that nevela is the place where the Torah spells out that there's a heter hana, and that shows me that everywhere else is an isser hana. That all only worked according to Rabbi Meir. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, that nevela was teaching me this. The psukim they were teaching me something else, and the place where it's spelled out is about a treifa, where it says the word oisoi, to teaching you that you're allowed to throw it to a dog. You're allowed to throw a treifa to a dog, and only this you're allowed to throw to a dog, but other isurim you're not allowed to throw to a dog because other isurim are automatically isser hana. So that oisoi is, according to Rabbi Avo, that's teaching me that you're allowed to throw things to a dog. According to Chizkiah, that oisoi is teaching me that shchute chulin ba'azara, if you slaughter a non-carbon animal inside the Beis HaMikdash, that is asur b'hana. So that's asur b'hana. That Rabbi Avo doesn't hold of. Rabbi Avo says that isur hana is only derabanan, and that's why that pasuk can't be used for that. And that's why he has that pasuk freed up for what Rabbi Yehuda. What his source for the fact that standard Isser Achila is also Isser Hana according to Rabbi Yehuda. But that's the bottom line. That's the one thing that they argue about. If you shecht a non-carbon in the Beis HaMikdash, and that is Asur B'Hana D'Oraisa or D'Rabbanan. The Gemara now notes that there's one Tana that doesn't have any of these sources for Isser Hana on the two things which are Asur B'Hana. He doesn't have any sources for any of them. None of these sources that we've had so far work. Who's that? The Gemara says that there was one of the Chachamim was sitting in front of Shmuel bar Nachmani, and he was saying in the name of Yeshua ben Levi, and he was saying, from where do you know that things which are Asur B'Hana, that they are Asur, from where do you know that things that are Asur B'Achila are Asur B'Hana? What's he referring to? He's referring to the two things about which the Torah says that it's Asur Ba'achila, and it is also Asur B'Hana. Those two things are Chametz on Pesach, and the Shar HaNiskal, the ox which has to be stoned. So Gemara says, what do you mean? We had sources for this. First of all, it says there, Lo Yeh Ochel. Chizkiah says, anytime it says Lo Yeh Ochel, that teaches you that there's an Isser Hana. So Gemara says this Tana is asking the question, he's asking what's the source, because he does not hold of Lo Yeh Ochel, doesn't hold of Chizkiah. So Gemara says, well then he should hold like Rabbi Avo, that any time the Torah says that there's an Isser Achila, that automatically means an Isser Hana. Gemara says no. Chizkiah's source for that was from Nevela, that the Torah said that there is a special heter for Hana of a Nevela, but according to this Tana, that pasuk is not extra. That pasuk is used to teach me that you're only allowed to give the nevela to a ger toishav, and you're only allowed to sell it to a goy, like the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. So that pasuk is not extra. So therefore, he can't use that source. So the Gemara says, well, Rabbi Avo had another source according to Rabbi Yehuda. The source was from the word hahu, from where it said you can throw it to from. The word oisai, where it says you can throw it to a dog, when you can throw a treifa to a dog. It says the extra word oisai, this you could throw to a dog and not other things. And that teaches me that everything else where it says you're not allowed to eat it is asur b'hana. So why doesn't he use that source? The Gemara says no, he can't use that source. He needs that source to teach me that chulin, a non-carbon, which is shachted in the azara, is asur b'hana deraisa, which we had said is what Rabbi Meir would do with that pasuk, and he does hold that as deraisa. I mean, in the past we said that the one who doesn't need this Joshua would just say that this is only midrabana, but he needs this hahu. He needs it for the chulin in the azara being asur behana. He also needs, as we said, the pasuk by Nevela to teach me who you're allowed to give it to and who you're allowed to sell it to. He doesn't hold of Chizkiah's Lo Yechel, so he has no source. So what is going to be his source for these two things that they are asur b'hana? So Gemara says there's a fourth source. And that is a pasuk talking about a carbon chatas that became puzzle because its blood was brought inside the heichal improperly. Halacha about such a carbon chatas is that it has to be burned, and the Torah says it twice. It says it once where it says that Moshe was upset that Aaron burnt a carbon chatas that was not puzzle in that way, and he said, hey, why did you burn it? Its blood wasn't brought inside the heichal, inside the oil moed in the Mishkan. So there you clearly see that if it is brought inside, it's supposed to be burned. Then again, the Torah says, "Kol chatas asher yuva midama," It says that it should be burned. So it says twice that it should be burned. So it doesn't have to say it twice. So now we have a principle called a main Indian. If something is said somewhere where it doesn't belong, it can teach you halacha in a totally different area. And we say that it's not going to teach me about carbon chatos. It's going to teach me about other Yisurin in the Torah, and it's not going to teach me about the Isser to eat it. It's going to teach me about the Isser to get any Hana, and therefore it's going to teach me that that there are other Yisurim which are Asur B'Hana, and it's referring to these two things, Chametz on Pesach and Misham.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.